Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Beyond the South Stand. I'm joined, of course, with Morgan, my co-host. How are you, Morgan?
Very well, very well. Happy to be here. Hope you're well.
Yes, yes, I am. Thank you so much for asking. And we record this podcast off the back of quite a good win, really, at the weekend, wasn't it?
I don't. You know what? Like, I think because this will go out next week. I think it's 4-2 against Stoke at Carrow Road.
Yeah.
Both of us were there. I kind of felt that I thought it was a decent result, but I'm getting an impression from the stratosphere that it was a bit more of a mixed bag. I think that last minute penalty kind of put the dampener on what would have been a bit of a party mood. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think exactly that. I think had we not conceded at the end and maybe taken the Suarez chance, which he somehow managed to blast over the bar from,
It would have been harder to miss.
I think the ball's still rising, isn't it? To be fair, but no. In all honesty, I think it's he's still young. He's still trying to ply his trade a little bit. So I think it'll come with him. But no, it was. I was really pleased. I was pleased with the scoreline. It was nice to meet Reece beforehand, who was the start of our last Beyond the South Stand.
Yeah, great guy. Great. His dad came along for the ride, which is a surprise birthday trip, wasn't it? So
yes, yeah,
great. The Stoke fans were in full voice, and it was it was really good to see. Really good to see their support come that far across the country.
Absolutely. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our guest today, and he goes by the name of Ben Rimmer, our Oxford United fan. Hi Ben, how are you?
Hi, very well, thank you. Yeah. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you very much for coming on. And I think Morgan, if you'd just like to explain your link to Ben and to start with.
Yeah, of course. So me and Ben, I've met you a fair few times in London, haven't I? Back in the day.
Yeah.
Usually in a pub or some kind of boozing establishment. But we both have a link through a good. He always gets a shout on the show. We need to grab him. We need to get him on this show. It's really irritating. He refuses to come on. But Woody, Michael Woods, is our mutual acquaintance. So shout out to Woody as usual.
You've got a friend in me.
There we go.
Yeah.
Don't sing again, Jez, because that's my role. But yeah, so we know each other, I guess, through kind of music, Ben.
Yeah. At one point, I think I'm right in saying I was probably surrounded somewhat by Norwich fans as well.
Never a bad thing, that Ben. Never a bad thing.
What, in London? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I mean, it was certainly more than any other club at one point, and then a lot of people sort of moved out of London.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think.
For me.
Yeah, you're still sort of hanging on in there.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, I didn't realise that you were an Oxford United fan.
Did you not?
No.
I guess we've not really enjoyed being in the same league, so it doesn't really come up.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't think you were into that sort of football, to be honest, because I think we kept a tight ship, the Norwich lot, and we sort of go to a lot of games together and stuff like that. So there's Woody's other flatmate. Was he a Doncaster Rovers fan?
That's testing me. I don't know. There's certainly there's a Crystal Palace fan.
Gordon Reid, the infamous Gordon.
An Aston Villa fan, Andrew Halford.
Yeah, in Halford. Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, he was a Doncaster fan. I don't know.
I think he was later in our tenure.
Okay.
Excellent. So moving on then, Ben. So how long have you supported Oxford for? I mean, and could you just give us sort of a brief, for those that are sort of unaware about Oxford United, give us sort of a brief synopsis of the club and perhaps talk about their stadium as well.
Yeah, can do. So yeah, basically, I've supported Oxford. I think I went to my first match at the old Manor Ground in Headington in Oxford back in about 93, maybe 94.
Wow.
And I was sort of taken along by friends of mine who I grew up with, whose dads were both into Oxford and supported them as kids as well.
Mm.
So I used to go along really regularly as a kid to all the home matches at the Manor Ground. And basically, as a sort of a brief overview of Oxford, we've had, as many clubs have, had many sort of bad years, and pretty much within about 5 or 6 years of me starting to watch, going to watch the matches, we were already kind of turning the corner and going downhill,
Right.
and which ended up with us in the Conference League, non-league, for 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
During which point we moved to our current stadium, which is the Kassam Stadium. I don't know if either of you have had the pleasure of going there.
Not yet.
3-stand wonder with a car park at one end, and that's that. So yeah, I used to go there, like watching us as sort of non-league, as a non-league team, and then we got promoted in 2010, and then sort of gradually sort of turned things around and started climbing the league again. So we're kind of where we are now is sort of where we were when I started watching us. So we were at one stage in the 90s knocking on the door of the Premiership.
Wow.
It was kind of the story. There's different sort of versions of the story, but basically amongst Oxford fans, it's sort of it goes that basically the law had come into that every Premier League team had to have an all-seater stadium.
Right.
And the old Manor Ground was classic old ground, all concrete and terraced and all standing pretty much, and sloped to one side, which is why like a lot of the Premiership clubs used to come and struggle there in the FA Cup. It was always quite fun.
Yeah.
So we were told, we were forced out of the stadium and sold players to build a stadium, and then ended up selling the club for £1 to Firoz Kassam, who's the current sort of ground owner, but no longer, thankfully, our chairman. But yeah, so hard times, but pretty delighted to be back up in second tier.
No, it's great.
Yeah, you're doing pretty well. I mean, I didn't know. If I'm honest, I'm really honest, Ben. I didn't know that much about Oxford. So, great story, to be honest. You've come pretty far. Is there an Oxford City?
There is an Oxford City. I used to live on the same road as their ground, and actually there's an annual match between United and City that usually happens at Marsh Lane, which is in a place called Marston, which is not too far from where Oxford were originally from in Headington. So it's kind of, and Oxford City were last year in the Conference South, and then in the National League, rather than got relegated, having won very few games. So I keep an eye on them because I do,
fair enough.
follow them, but not as obviously as an Oxford United fan. That's my primary team.
Just quickly, because I don't know if you have still got connections to them. So obviously Oxford is famous for quite a few musical outfits like Radiohead and Foals.
Mm-hmm.
Are Foals fans of Oxford United? Any of them?
I don't think they are. I could be wrong, but I don't think any of them are sort of that into football. I don't know.
I'm just trying to make that link, like Ed Sheeran and Ipswich.
I know there isn't sort of. I could be. I can't say I've ever spoken to any of them about football, so I'd be surprised if they were. But they've started playing a Foals song as the entrance song for Oxford United.
Oh, no way.
Which is quite funny. Yeah.
That's amazing. Which one is it?
It's that I don't know what it's called. It's the one that's like where Giannis is going like, when I see a man, I see a lion. That one.
I don't.
Do you know the type? I don't know.
No, I don't. It's a nice little touch. It's got to be better than Street Spirit by Radiohead, right? Beginning to go out.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there were times when that could have been quite fitting, but
yeah, fair enough. So, Jez, over to you, I think.
Yeah, I think question one, when I wrote this, I don't know what I was doing because I just looked at the league table and you're 8 points clear of relegation. So, I mean, I'll rephrase it slightly. At the moment, being 8 points clear, do you currently feel safe, or do you think there's still a chance of relegation this season?
There's definitely a chance of relegation. And I'll caveat all of this by saying that I was probably not alone in Oxford in being like really surprised that we beat Bolton in the playoffs to come up to the Championship in the first place, and then I was probably also not alone in doing the math straight away, being like, how many teams do we need to kind of beat, and who?
Well, you beat Norwich.
Well, that was a shock. Yeah, that was a real shock.
It wasn't a shock for me at all.
I mean, at the moment, so we've been through managers recently with Gary Rowett now, who's kind of ex-Millwall and sort of he was interim Birmingham manager just before coming to us, and he's kind of very much I think he's got a slightly unfair thing in like a lot of Oxford fans seeing him as being just overly defensive, and he kind of came in and shored things up. But we were in free fall before.
It's probably what you needed, though, right?
Yeah.
I think Rowett's quite pragmatic. He's quite a pragmatist.
Yeah. We've sort of playing a very different kind of football, but it feels a little bit more stable. Des Buckingham was our previous manager, who was actually once upon a time under-9s coach for Oxford, and
right.
Coached some of the players. But anyway, like he played a very different kind of gung-ho kind of football, which went so far. Obviously, got us promoted, and we were doing pretty well to start off with. But I didn't feel like there was much of a plan B. And whereas Gary Rowett's a bit more seasoned, knows the league, and I don't mind, because I think the whole point is we are losing to teams we're, I guess, meant to lose to. And we've managed to at least draw with some of the sort of clubs in and around that area of the league. So we're sort of, I can definitely see us getting relegated. But basically my position is, I thought we would get relegated at the beginning of the season, without wanting to sound negative.
No.
We're just not we're not that size of a club compared to a lot of the other clubs up in the Championship.
But I think, I draw comparisons, or at least I drew comparisons when you were talking about the National League to Luton Town. Yeah. And look what they've done, and look what they, perhaps not.
Hang on, Jez, hang on. Caveat to listeners at home: you have to give them context. Your love for Luton Town.
Well, yeah, we'll maybe come on to that later. But I mean, what I was going to say was not look at them now, because obviously they're propping up the Championship. But they enjoyed their Premier League season last year, but they've gone from the conference or National League, being in there for 5 seasons, all the way up to the Premier League. And clubs like I shouldn't really use that sort of phrase, but I'm going to. Clubs like Oxford must look at that and go, well, if they can do it, then surely we've got a chance.
I think everyone does, right? Like below the clubs that have been there, particularly in recent history. I guess Norwich is a prime one in the Championship, but there are lots of big clubs. But outside of, like, I guess the recent sort of and current Premiership sort of stock, like that is the hope, isn't it, for any team? And it's very possible. You just need to keep hold of good players and have a sort of the right kind of manager come in the right time. Or the stars have to align a little bit, but it's I don't think that's I think that also, to give you a bit of context, because I tend to follow the background of Oxford quite a lot, and it's sort of, you see a lot of talk in the background about, like, we were due to move to a new stadium, like the lease on the current stadium runs out next season, so that's meant to be a thing very soon, and there's planning applications around that. Like, the club has for a long time been trying to just shore itself up, and it's not shoring itself up. Like, the new stadium is meant to be 18,000 capacity, so it's not like aiming for the stars and moon as a sort of Premiership outfit. It's more like trying to be there as a Championship sort of regular. And so a lot of the kind of, I think I'm definitely in the camp that, if we can shore up and stay in the Championship, then that's a pretty big mark of success for my club.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you've done pretty well, given that the teams below you. I mean, offhand, I don't know. I mean, I know that it's Luton, Derby. I can't remember who else occupies that. Plymouth. So, I mean, I think that you're still doing pretty well. You've also got Rowett in, as I said earlier, like he's a pragmatist and he knows. I mean, weirdly, before he left Birmingham, or if he got the sack, I can't remember, in that sort of inaugural season that he was there, they were nestled in the playoffs quite happily. And there's a lot of people like wanting Rowett and wanting him to be their head coach. And he did pretty well with Millwall as well. So I think, if you can sort of maintain that sort of like level where you're at and you're beating teams maybe around you. I mean, let's face it, you beat Norwich, so there's got to be something there. And if you're able to get those points, I don't really see any reason why you can't survive. I think as well, it takes time to bed in a new manager, and especially when you come up from the League One into the Championship, it might seem like a massive leap, but if you gather that momentum, I mean, who knows? Like, who knows if you stay up? The amount of kind of like positivity might lead you towards a like mid-table charge next season.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. I think I think when you mentioned about the kind of the potential to get relegated, is I guess that's even though there's this pragmatic side of me that's just like, well, yeah, it's definitely possible. And maybe we all thought this was like in Oxford, we thought this was coming at the beginning of the season, but actually having come up into the Championship, we've had a few results. Looking around, and particularly like below us at the moment, it's just it would hurt so much to go back down to League One, but it at the same time, yeah, like I do think you're right, Morgan, because it's like that idea of building momentum is really important.
Massively.
And a lot of the players are new as well to the club. Like they brought, like we brought in a ridiculous, I think it was like 13 players or something at the beginning of the season. So it's like so many players, and a lot of them that started the season were the League One players, the ones that sort of were played in the playoff final. But so many are new, and so many have been brought in January as well. It's like we've really like added to the numbers, and those won't know any different. So it's kind of surrounding them with the right culture and being like, no, we are a Championship club and we've got a Championship level manager and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if we interviewed on a previous podcast, like a Preston fan, and he's pretty kind of realistic about where Preston are in the Championship, and then they go and beat Norwich. There's a theme here, but like they've done pretty well. Like to sort of, I know that a lot of people just disregard them as mid-table kind of mediocrity in the Championship, but at the same measure, the Championship isn't getting any easier. And I think that if you wind the clock back for Norwich 6 years, we were always up thereabouts, and we're now kind of like finding ourselves kind of bobbing around the playoffs. And so it's kind of testament to what's happening in the Championship. And I think that if you can survive this season, then there's no reason why you kind of can't push on, sort of become mid-table and then incremental, gradually climb the ladder like Luton did. I mean, forgive me, Jez, like I don't know too much about Luton, but like, their fall from grace is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's what's the word? Help me out, Morgan. Seismic.
Yeah.
As big as it was going up, it's as big as it is now going down. Is the point I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So, they rose so high to go so low again, and it's like the problem is that they've got players there that they've had to put on big contracts because they've obviously gone to the Premier League, and a club of Luton size, they're now, that's a bitter pill to swallow. Yes, they've obviously sold the likes of Barkley and Townsend and players like that, but that sort of losing feelings really settled in, and they tried. I think the managerial appointment of Bloomfield hasn't really worked. unfortunately. And yeah, I don't know. I hope they turn a corner. As you alluded to earlier, Morgan, I do like Luton. They're my second. If I'm allowed a second team, they're my second team. Purely because I went to university in Luton. Don't ask me why. But
it's a good job my second team is Spurs.
yeah,
But
yeah.
they're just like the Norwich of the Premier League.
Exactly. And, it's, I sort of, I put myself through misery twice sometimes. It's crazy, but yeah, no, I hope they turn the corner.
But going back to what you said, Ben, that's what you don't want to go back into League One, because the hangover from those adventures up north, if you will, it sometimes can really affect a team's morale. I mean, God knows, we've been there so many times.
Yeah, I think I guess that's the thing. Like looking down at sort of the scrap in League One, and it's sort of like that League One's a weird league because it's like a sort of you've got a little kind of capsule version of the Championship happening at the top.
Yeah,
and it's
like same with the Championship though in the Prem.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And it's like, but there's like big clubs, at the moment, obviously Birmingham, but it's just huge clubs just come down and fill those automatic promotion places, and you just kind of, as the club outside of that, you just hope you can navigate the playoffs, which we basically never did in League One, and I've sort of been to so many playoffs in various leagues, but the League ones are tough, and that's why I sort of, I saw that we saw Peterborough in the semi-final of the playoffs and went to, meet Bolton. I was like, here we go, big club, but they were suffering at the time with their form. But yeah, it's just difficult to then navigate that with all of those big clubs that sort of tend to find themselves in. Like, I hope for Luton as well. I really love their story, going up from the same place that Oxford were and right into the Premiership, as they became I think, as with a lot of neutrals, just like my de facto team I was looking out for, and just hoping that they do well, just because it's a great story, and it as an Oxford fan, yeah, you can but dream.
Absolutely. So, I mean, moving on to question 2. So, tell us a bit more about your team. So, who's been your standout player this season, and maybe who needs to step up in the running?
I mean, it's tough because I guess we've had a few injury problems, which was, I'm sure, coming as well, because that's we've tried to keep, I think, under Des Buckingham, we've tried to keep pretty much the same team that got promoted, even though there were obviously new additions to the squad, a lot of new additions. Then Cameron Brannigan, who's kind of basically he's a sort of an ex-Liverpool Academy product, and he's been with Oxford a long time, actually, come up through the leagues with us, and he's still like one of the most important players for us. He's kind of like quite scrappy and like a sort of dogged midfielder who just kind of, but he is creative. He's clearly got quality that we've not really had in previous seasons. Then he was out for a while, which I think did it for Des Buckingham really, when he couldn't fill that space that he left. He's back in the team now, but we had another injury to probably my star player, Greg Lee, who was our left back, who, from left back, I think he's played 28 or 29 games this season. Got injured against Pompey when we lost at home. But he's from left back, scored 5 goals and got an assist as well.
Wow.
Which for a team that is really struggling for goals is just invaluable, having a player like that who's able to kind of affect a game and chip in with the goals as well. Other than that, I mean, we've got just a few. We've still got players like Mark Harris, he started the season really well. I think he might have scored against Norwich. I can't remember if he did, but he was he had a really good first month or two, and then I think like under Rowett, he's sort of like he's there, he's available, but not being picked. And there are a number of sort of one of my favourite players is Tyler Goodrum, but he's sort of being shoehorned into a number 10 where he's kind of he usually kind of plays slightly more of a wide, creative sort of wide player role, but Rowett seems to prefer like fast running wide forwards.
Yeah.
So I think on balance, I'd say Greg Lee, but he's out now, and it's a hamstring as well, so he's out for a while.
Yeah.
In terms of the players, I don't know. It's so difficult to know who could step it up, because I think in a way it's like I think someone just hit the nail on the head when I was reading. They kind of that Oxford are kind of just coming out of that like new manager bounce, and actually, if anything, it's about finding which players are going to do the job week in, week out and get the message. And like a lot of Oxford fans are jumping on Matt Phillips, who's kind of like, I mean, he's like in his 30s now, and he's one of the wide forwards, but like he's really struggling at the moment. But I think it's more symptomatic of the whole team struggling, that like the confidence is not there, and we're not.
Was he at West Brom then? Sorry to interrupt.
He was West Brom before.
Good player in his day, but as you say, I think he's someone that's probably getting to the twilight of his career. But sorry, carry on. I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. I think that's right, and then and I think Oxford's. There's theories that he's being kept in there because he's obviously got the experience as a senior player, and that's kind of important because we've got like quite a few young players who haven't played in the Championship before, and so therefore it's kind of like I think Rowett's trying to sort of fashion a team around experience and players who kind of get the way he wants to play. I think the only thing is we're currently just very reliant on certain players, which is I mean, who knows how Greg Lee got his hamstring injury, but I expect he was like running a lot and probably running more than his fair share. And I think that just happens when you've kind of got a team that like we put in a lot of passes. I don't know if you see any of like the kind of the stats in the sort of the match reports, but it's like Oxford is right up there for passes, but we don't tend to do much with it.
That sounds familiar.
And I think that kind of and I think you can kind of see it play out. But it's like I think in those sorts of teams, like the players who often get singled out are just the ones that aren't like on the ball a lot, but it doesn't mean they're not doing anything. So I'm reluctant to like point the finger at anyone at the moment, but.
Jez does like to throw in a finger-pointing question, don't you, Jez?
Occasionally.
He loves to cause like
cause a stir,
controversy. But I mean, I think the point is like I assume you've kept most of your team from League One, right?
Yeah, it's with a few exceptions, which were the obvious ones. I think Josh Murphy being one, going to Portsmouth, but.
Of this parish.
Yeah.
And his birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, Josh Murphy.
Yeah. Alongside his brother, obviously.
His twin, yeah.
Josh and Jacob, happy birthday if you're listening to this. Which they're probably not.
It's belated when we put this out, but as we speak on Monday, whatever day it is today, happy birthday.
That counts.
Lads.
But yeah, I mean, I think like it would be too easy to, when you get promoted, to like shed a load of those players. I mean, I think like when we splurged last in the Premier League, I think we were like 11th most spend like in world football at the time. It was like the 21-22 season. And we shaved a hell of a lot of our midfield out for like brand new players, a brand new formation, and subsequently we were awful. We stacked the Premier League out, but like I think Watford did that successfully for a few seasons where they got promoted into the Premier League, just shed all of their Championship players for Premier League standard players. But I don't know now if doing that is the right thing to do. I mean, especially recently with our endeavours going up, where we did that, and we were pretty bad. So I think it's something to be said with having that sense of loyalty. I don't know what both of you think to that.
I'll let you go first, Ben.
Yeah, I definitely think. I think there's also, I guess, the fans are part of that as well, because you do grow attached to certain players, and I think the way that the team plays, I think there's like consistency is a big factor. I think in Oxford's situation, because we've gone through a few managers in a relatively short amount of time, and importantly, I guess this season, moving from one manager with one playing style to another, then I think there is that sort of you want some of that consistent thread in the team, just to kind of to I guess build on what it is that got you there. So it's like, when we were sort of watching the Oxford last season, really they only started making a charge for the playoffs right at the last minute, and it was literally like a last day thing. And I remember just being like, oh, like we actually got in. That was a bit of a surprise. And then and then getting obviously promoted was a further surprise, but there was something building there that kind of carried on a little bit into the new season, with a lot of players. I think I saw something saying that like the existing, I think there were 9 players in the first game that Oxford played in the championship that started the playoff final, and they were running more, and like they were kind of they'd upped it basically for the championship. But I guess where the wheels start falling off is, and where I guess the importance of squad depth is, and being able to develop like a rotational system in the squad, like, and know who your kind of your those extra 2 or 3 players are. Like that's where we got the injuries that maybe we didn't get in previous seasons, and now we're kind of being found out a little bit for that, even though we've got the players that they're just not bedded in. So I think there's a bit of both, but I think having that consistency, if we were literally just to come up and just get rid of all of the players and start with a brand new like team, then it's a Hail Mary, isn't it? Really, we're kind of just like, what we doing? It's like, and I'm sure the players would be nonplussed, and any coach would struggle with that. So I imagine the same would be the case with the Premiership, but you can't speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's 2 things really. I think you've got to reward the players that get you there in the first place. I mean, they deserve an opportunity to show what they can do to an extent. I think. I mean, the biggest, or at least one example that I would give, perhaps sort of 20 years ago or so, we had a player called Mark Edworthy that was playing right back, and brought a player in called Thomas Helveg, who I don't know if you remember him, but he was brought in from AC Milan, I think. So you could tell what sort of player he was in terms of quality. Obviously, above and beyond perhaps what Mark Edworthy's done in his career, no disrespect, but Edworthy kept him out of the team. But having that player there probably brought Edworthy's game on. Does that make sense? So even though it was just that sort of level of competition, I suppose, that provided that opportunity for that player to then go and progress and play in the Premier League. And ultimately we didn't stay up that season, but it was still, that was what we were trying to achieve. I think that sort of competition. So yes, I think you're right in so much that the players do need that to get you there in the first place. Let's see what they can do. But equally there needs to be, it's a squad game these days and has been for a long time. So you need your squad for the season.
Yeah, but also you obviously need your gems. I mean, I keep drawing back to that ill-fated second expedition to the Premier League with Farke, and how we basically without Buendia we didn't have that talisman, to that playmaker to kind of make those runs, and we tried to mix things up and it didn't work, and it was a lot of huff and puff for nothing. So I think sometimes you've got to go we've got to maintain 80% of that team. But obviously, add to it with gems, or if you can afford the gems, and then sort of build it out from that. But yeah. So I guess moving on to question 3, Jez, do you want me to ask that, or?
Yeah, go for it, 'cause my kettle's going at the moment.
Jez is making a nice cup of tea. This is how pro we are on this. So what's been your favourite moment of the season so far? And has there been any standout games or performances? I mean, I know you beat Norwich on your first day, so
yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think that has to be it, because it's obviously in light of the fact that we've the rest of the performances, like I think that have been highlights, have really ended up in draws or narrow losses. So, that was the one that really shocked me. I wasn't it was the only one really that I wasn't paying that much attention to, even though I was it was in the back of my mind. But we were out of town, and it was actually Woody that told me what happened. And I and so I caught up on it after, and again it was just continuing that sense of slight bewilderment, that we were in the Championship and actually kind of putting in performances. Not that Norwich were flying and it was the best Norwich performance, but it was just something for for little old Oxford, really.
No, and I think it was a massive reward, wasn't it, for you guys that you
Jez, I'm just going to nip off, sorry.
No problem. A big reward for you guys for obviously the performance you put in that day. I thought was exceptional, and we haven't really got started under the new manager, so it was good. I mean, I this wasn't good for a Norwich fan, but certainly good for an Oxford fan at that time.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think it sort of slightly gave people, I don't want to say false hope, but it's I don't really mean that. I mean I think when there's a lot of moaning that happens with Oxford sliding a bit, because we have been and certainly as I say, it's a lot of our more recent positive results have been draws, and then a couple of losses, some not so bad losses, and some slightly worse. And so it's good to be able to look back on some performances where it got the points. So it's possible, like we were saying earlier, it's possible that kind of a performance is in the team somewhere, to help us stay up in the league.
No, it's really good, and I hope you do, and it'll be good to if you do. Obviously, I'd love to come down to Oxford Stadium and experience that.
Yeah, man.
That's the three sides.
Yeah. We stand in the south stand with the freezing gale coming in from one side.
Keep an eye on my car in the car park. Make sure.
Yeah, that's it. You want to park in the field around the corner, not in the one in front of the bowling alley, because that's the prime prime spot to get hit.
Talk to us a little bit about Primoshul Plaheta, and we're going to be talking a little bit more in depth about Norwich and Oxford players, but he scored a relatively good goal earlier this season for you, didn't he?
Yeah, and again, I think people were got quite excited because again, I guess he's the sort of he's got obviously the history with you guys, but sort of he's played for clubs that have been at a higher level than Oxford, and so his arrival was kind of people were just this is a great signing, and he definitely did start off pretty well, and I think he's maybe we'll yet to see if he's gonna sort of kick on, and again he's not really impacted. I think he was responsible for one of the misses recently, and I think again people were slightly unfairly saying he was he was wasteful. I think actually he put in a really good shot that was really well saved against Portsmouth, but we were wasteful in front of goal generally, and a couple of the other players, including Phillips, I think, missed some sitters. So but I'm hopeful because he's kind of I think a player like him can do a job. I don't know what you guys think, having obviously
was very quick.
Having him on your books. He's quick. Yeah.
Very, very quick. I think he was at one point was the quickest player in the championship, or something ridiculous like that. I think there's been times where he's shown flashes of brilliance, and I mean, I've got to be honest, for Norwich, not many, but there's certainly. I've always thought there might be a player there. You know, he's relatively young still. Yes, he's been in England now for 3 or 4 years, but I certainly think there could be a player still there that comes good at some stage, and it'd be a club like. Again, I've done it again. I feel so bad saying that. I'm going to get in trouble by some Oxford fans here. A club like Oxford would be a great place for him to develop.
Yeah. I think it's. I like that he's in the team. I can see that like he's the profile of player that Rowett wants. Like because he sets up in this way where it's kind of we've got that like even our kind of I don't know if it's out of choice at the moment because I know that he brought in. Some players specifically to kind of to bolster the attacking options, but he tends to like those quick players, particularly on the wing, and so I can see he's got a role to play. The rest of it's just not coming together at the moment. So I think it's and Oxford's always, certainly in the last 6 or 7 years, been quite a good club for developing players, and until the championship we were very much a sellers club where we'd either develop players from the academy or have players join for a short period and then go on to do bigger things. So it has had we've and I do like that, obviously with the caveat that we I want us to also then kind of move on and do better things as a club, but I'm hopeful. I'm hoping he does sort of stay in the team and helps us improve.
Definitely. We're talking about Pletcher, Morgan. I know you've just.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say, to be honest, about him. I mean, he was quite fast.
That's what we were saying.
Yeah. I mean, probably now would be a good time to talk about some shared legends. This is what this section's called. So players that have played for both Norwich and Oxford, or managers.
It's got to be one of them, isn't he?
Yeah, he's currently in. So any more that you can think of, Ben, off the top of your head? Anyone that you'd like to mention?
I mean, I guess earlier we were talking about Josh Murphy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was. How long was he a Norwich player for?
So he was a youth product of ours along with his brother. So they were probably at the club for 10 years. I think him and his brother both won the FA Youth Cup with us as well.
Yeah, he was definitely one of my favourite players. He sort of came in and out of Oxford's season last season, but he certainly came good in scoring in the playoff final. But he was definitely you could see there were certain players that were just kind of a level above, and when he was on it, he was just a level above. And I think when he got the trust of Des Buckingham, where I think Liam Manning, who's kind of the previous manager, very, very short-lived manager, who's now at Bristol City.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about that. But he didn't really seem to like Josh Murphy, or at least he didn't sort of play him when he was available. But he definitely for Oxford was one of those players that, when he was on it, he was a game changer for us.
Okay, and then what about someone like a Carlton Morris that spent some time on loan with you?
Oh God, that's testing me.
Carlton Morris. He likes to probe.
There you go. That was what Morgan was talking about earlier when I just drop a player in that.
A random player, yeah. God, poor Carlton Morris. I can't remember.
No, that's fine. Ashley Barnes, I suppose, was with you earlier on in his career as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of football fans in general know about Ashley Barnes and what he brings to the team. And also our current sub-goalkeeper, the much maligned sub-goalkeeper, George Long, was also with you earlier in his career.
Yeah, I do. I remember Long.
It's the long and short of it, Ben.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Sorry.
Hopefully more long when it's a goalkeeper.
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And you've got to make a pun out of this name now, Morgan. Yannick Wildschlat, or Schlat, so did I say? That was a slip of the tongue, wasn't it? Yannick
Certainly
Wildschlat.
wild.
Yeah.
Don't know how much of a slut he was.
Is this a shared player?
Yeah, Yannick Wildschlat. He scored the infamous one goal at the Battle of Bramall Lane when we beat Sheffield United a few seasons ago, when Chris Wilder went on a massive rant about how Norwich should have turned up. The bus driver should have turned up knowing that there'd be traffic in Sheffield City Centre. So.
Chris Wilder, we had him for a while, but not as a player, obviously, as a manager.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was our first sort of league manager back in the fold, and he managed to, even though he was clearly sort of like aiming at better things and bigger things, certainly, and kind of like, we were in League Two, but he was definitely kind of, even then he was like slightly unpopular with Oxford fans. But it's quite like, we've had a real mix of like a managerial mixed bag over the years.
Yeah. I think Norwich have always played it kind of relatively safe. We've always had likeable characters, other than I always forget Glenn Roeder.
Yeah.
We've always had reasonably likeable characters as our managers, so I'm glad that we've never, it sounds bad, but never had a Warnock or a Wilder in our fold.
Yeah. And then finally, for me, Alex Matos, who's currently on loan from you at Chelsea, started his career in Norwich. Don't think he actually ever played for us though, as in a professional game, but he was certainly on our books and went out to Chelsea just basically snatched him from us. So.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's tends to be in our starting 11. He's kind of and I read something from him saying he's happy to kind of be like play in different positions. I think he's kind of been like brought in and used slightly as a kind of like utility and sort of being able to cover various positions that we might be short in. So so that which would be very useful. That turns out to be the case.
No, definitely. Right, so now this is the part where we pretend that we're Thursday the 6th of March, right?
Yeah, why not? Let's pretend.
Do we have a little score prediction? Well, it'll actually be Wednesday, won't it? Because we usually put these out a couple of days in advance, but never mind, whenever it gets put out. What's your score prediction for 2 days' time? Can Oxford pull off a big result, or Norwich prove too strong, is what I wrote.
There's the head and heart, and neither are predicting an Oxford win. If I'm honest, I think my heart is saying a 1-1 draw. My head is saying Norwich win by 2 clear goals, either 2-0 or 3-1.
Morgan?
I'm not going to say it anymore because it's become a thing. I usually say Ben 10-0.
10-0?
Yeah.
Yeah. To Oxford?
Okay. No, that's never going to happen.
That would be a real turnaround.
Yeah, sure, it would be. If we just stood still like mannequins, although Oscar Schwartu felt like a mannequin the other day when he missed that open goal. I would say, I'd probably say 3-1 to Norwich.
Yeah. I think you're in for one a little bit here, Ben, if you want my honest opinion.
Yeah.
Because they'll be after blood after the start of the season.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I think 4-1.
Yeah.
I hope it's closer for obvious reasons, but
no, you don't. That's such a lie.
I actually don't, to be honest. I'm sorry. I don't at all. I want us to win 4-1. I don't know why I feel bad.
He's always like this. He's just like, I'm trying to appease the guest. I'm like, just go for the throat. Just go for the jugular, James.
We'll see you.
If it was shoes on the other foot, I'm sure I'd want us to. And it's like the same thing as I probably sound very pessimistic, but I'm definitely. I already feel optimistic with where we are. It's just Norwich is not our fight. I know that it's not necessarily been the best campaign for you guys either, but by your standards. But at the same time, if anything, the anomaly is definitely the first of the season match, and I think if we do come away with a point, then that is a real result away from home. And that's just me being realistic and optimistic.
No, fair assessment. I'd say fair shout. Morgan,
what?
It's the question of the week, my friend.
What is it?
It's the question of the week.
Random.
Sorry, the random question of the week. Apologies.
Are you ready for this, Ben?
Yeah.
It's the random question of the week.
Oh, very nice.
I know, it's very sultry. Ben, the start of the podcast, you mentioned that you're a fan of music. Music has cropped up in this chat a few times.
It has.
If you could come up with an album title for Oxford's season, what would said album title be?
Oh, that's a good one.
Isn't it? It takes me about 3 hours to come up with these.
Yeah, probably, but take me about 4 hours to answer.
We're not a Foles album.
Yeah. Not What Went Down, right? Is that a Foles album? I think that's that track I was talking about.
This goes out to the public, by the way, Ben. It's a family podcast.
I really hope it's not What Went Down. Another Foles one was Holy Fire, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a slightly unholy fire. We've got the I don't know. Anything else would be a what is it? It's sort of like
I've really got you on this, haven't I?
Yeah.
Rumours. Oh, that's already been done.
Rumours has been done. It has to be a brand new album title for Oxford United, the burgeoning championship pop act when football doesn't quite work out. I think I'd probably go with Let's Not Draw Every Game.
That's you know what? If you're still waiting to be signed by someone, right now, if I was a music exec, I'd be like, Ben.
Your ears would prick up there, yeah.
With titles like that.
Yeah, there's money to be made. There's money to be made.
Something to be made. A bed.
There's an album to be made, by the sounds of it.
Jez, throwing that over to you. What's yours?
I don't know. Maybe some were along the lines of No Caro, No Cry. Maybe No Cry, Bob Marley's famous one.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's been relatively inconsistent, isn't it? So, is there an album title that sort of talks along the lines of inconsistency?
I've got it.
You've got it, have you? Go on then.
The Rutting Gump. So I'll say that again for listeners. The Rutting, Rutting, Gump, like Forrest Gump. The Rutting Gump.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because we've been rutting at the goal, but we've just been like Forrest Gump, just keep on running.
The Rutting Gump.
Yeah, the Rutting Gump would be my album title.
It's quite a good band name as well.
It sounds like an insult where you're trying not to say the swear word. Rutting gump.
So basically, thanks Ben, because I'm actually going to get onto the NCFC squad and see if I can get some players to play in a band with me. See if there's anyone interested to form the Rutting Gump.
Yeah. That sounds like it's got legs.
Yeah. Good luck with that endeavour.
Not if you've got a Rutting Gump. It does.
No.
Sometimes I amaze myself with the amount of shit I talk on this podcast.
55 minutes without a swear word. Yeah. Shit.
Got to meet the quota.
It just means I've got to do a bit more work when I edit the pod now. Usually if no one swears, it's quite easy, but it's at least another 5 minutes worth of work now. Thanks, Morgan.
No worries, buddy.
That's the tea I've just sipped that I made about 10 minutes ago. That's lovely. Well, it's been brilliant, Ben. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
Absolute pleasure. It was great to chat to you. And nice to talk some Norwich as well. It's been a while.
Have you been to the Carrow Road before?
I have. Yeah.
Have you? Did Woody drag you along?
Say again?
Did Woody drag you along?
No, it's pre-Woody actually.
Really?
It was a Forest match, yeah. So my stepdad's a lifelong Forest fan.
Oh, he must be happy at the moment.
He's very happy at the moment. He's kind of he's now kind of gone off to sending me a message like every week. It's kind of like we're sort of getting used to the fact that this is kind of where Forest seem to be at the moment. But I'm kind of like I've gone to a number of Forest games, particularly away games, I guess, a lot as well. Went to Watford. Never went to Kenilworth Road or anywhere. Like went to I don't know, loads of places. Like I think the way Forest are at the moment, we're going to struggle to get to see them, but we're going to try and go and see them in the City Ground.
Brilliant.
Because it seems like an incredible atmosphere, as you can expect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just one more thing before we finish. Who would you say Oxford United's rivals are? What clubs do you...
So the big ones, and it's going to sound weird, but the big one's Swindon.
Right.
Yeah, the scum.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're the big ones.
Too many
like,
roundabouts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that if you speak to any Oxford fans, it'll be like Swindon's the first one out there.
Yeah.
So I think there's been Oxford though, like when I guess I started watching them, like we were closer. I don't think they were first division at the time, but we sort of spent a lot of time around kind of playing them in the cup or in league games after that. But actually, I guess we've spent more time in recent years playing teams like Wycombe.
Right.
So they're kind of geographical rivals, but Swindon's the big one.
Right. Okay, that's a message to all you Swindon fans. Don't mess with Ben.
A town like Ipswich Town.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oxford is a city, isn't it?
It is.
I'm going to wrap it up, Morgan, before I
offend people.
Well, that, but also start quoting David Brent.
No, don't do that.
No, because he obviously hated Swindon for different reasons. But
yeah,
we might have to speak to a Swindon Town fan, so we have to be nice.
I mean, they're off to the National League at the moment, aren't they?
It'll take a while.
Well, you never know. We might tip down there too soon.
You never know. Okay, well, thanks everyone for listening. You can follow us on all of our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram and X. And you can now listen to the show on YouTube. Please subscribe to all of these, and we look forward to speaking to everyone soon. I've been Jez Davies.
I've been Barack Obama.
That's it for this episode of Beyond the Barkley. Thanks so much for listening. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. You can also catch all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you've got any questions, stories, or topics you'd like us to cover, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, on the ball, City.